We talked about dividing numbers today and rounding them to the nearest 2 decimal places. This is a kind of problem that does take a long process, so it is a more tedious problem, but I want to walk you through one so that it doesn't cause you too much trouble with your homework. So first of all, you'll see it might say something like 621 over 0.31. If you remember from our math tips, this line right here means divided by. That was one of our math tips to remember. So this means 621 divided by 0.31. And now we're going to set it up, and we need to make the division sign. And we have to remember which one of these numbers goes under the sign. We always call it in the house. So remember I talked about Santa being on the roof and wanting to go in the house. So you would put 621 underneath the division sign. And now we need to divide 621 by 0.31. So we're going to go ahead and put the 0.31 right here. In class we talked about before we can divide, we need to make sure that this decimal point is right next to this sign. We talked about how the decimal point is the one that does the knocking on the door. So we need to scoot it closer to the door. So we're going to move the decimal point over until we get it there. And we see that we moved the decimal point over 2 spots. So in this number, the decimal point is right here because it's just at the end of a whole number. If we move the number that's outside of the sign, if we move the decimal point over 2, we have to move this decimal point of the number under the sign over 2 as well. Otherwise, we'll get the wrong answer. So we moved this one 2, now we move this one 2. There aren't any numbers, so we're just going to make 2 little jumps, and we need to fill that in with something. And like we talked about in class, we fill that in with zeros. So now we move the decimal point over 2 spots. And that we always have to remember to put it right up on the top so we don't lose that spot that it ends up having to be in our answer. So the decimal point in our answer needs to be right here because we moved it over 2 points. So put it up there right away. Now when we go back to dividing, we're just going to ignore all those decimal points and just do it as if we were dividing 62,100 by 31. So we're going to take a look at here. We're going to try to see how many times does 31 go into this number. I always like to cover it up and go it a little bit at a time. And I say, can 31 go into 6? 6 isn't big enough, so we'll scoot it over one more. Can 31 go into 62? It can. And we can think, how many times does 31 go into 62? I would say that 31 goes into 62 probably twice. So over on the side of your paper, try it out, because sometimes you might pick a number that's too big or too small. But I think this one's just going to be just right. So 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 3 is 6. So you end up with 62. So we figured out that 31 goes into 62 twice. So we put the number 2 right on top of here, because we were doing 31 into 62. So the answer has to go right above where we were dividing. 2 times 31 is 62. So now we subtract. 62, take away 62 equals 0. So now you bring down the next number, which is a 1. Now you have to say, how many times does 31 go into 1? 1 isn't big enough to put 31 even one time. So we have to say that it goes in 0 times. So we put the 0 up there, and we say 31 times 0. 0 times 31 is 0. So we're going to subtract again. 1 minus 0 is 1. Now we're going to bring down this 0 right here. We'll bring that down, and then it makes 10. 31 still can't go into 10. 10 is still not big enough. So we have to put another 0 up here. And we have 0 times 31 is 0. 10 minus 0 is 10. And now we'll bring down another 0. At last we have something big enough that 31 can go into. I forgot to mention that in this problem, it said in the book, do this and round to 2 decimal spots, to 2 decimal places. So that is a hint that this this decimal would keep going on and on for a very long time, but they don't want us to do it for a very long time. They want us to round to 2 decimal places. So we need to keep going until we get to 2 decimal places plus 1 more. Because like we talked about in class, you need that additional spot in order to see what to round it to. So we have a little ways to go. We need to get a number here, 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 and here. So we need to go 4 more spots. So let's continue. We're trying to figure out how many times 31 goes into 100. We might guess 3. So we'll do that over on the side. And we get 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. So that looks right. So we're going to say that 31 goes into 100 3 times. So we put the 3 up here. 3 times 31 is 93. And we're going to subtract again. And 93 from 100 is 7. Now we need to see that we have another number here, and we have to keep going. And as I talked about in class, we can add zeros to this number in order to keep dividing. And because we need to round it to 2 decimal places, we're going to have to go, that's 2 decimal places, but we're going to have to go out 1 more so that we can get the number here that will tell us what to round this one to. So if it says round to 2 decimal places, you actually have to carry it out to 3 spots. If it says round to 3 decimal places, you would have to carry it out to 4 spots, and so on. You have to go 1 more spot than it wants you to round it to. So back to our problem. We have a 7 right here, so we're going to bring down a 0 and figure out how many times does 31 go into 70. I'm guessing 2 again, which we did up here. 31 times 2 is 62, so that's pretty close. So we'll put the 2 right here. 2 times 31 is 62. We're going to subtract and get 8. We're almost there. We're going to bring down this 0 and figure out how many times does 31 go into 80. 31 times 2 is 62. 31 times 3 is 93, which would be too big. So we need to go with 2 again. So we'll put the 2 up there, and we'll say 2 times 31 is 62, like we figured out already. Now when we subtract, we borrow, and we get 18. 80 minus 62 is 18. We bring down our last 0. This is the last place that we need to bring it out to. We need to figure out how many times does 31 go into 180. It looks like it would be pretty close to 6. We'll try 6, and then we'll see what our answer would be. If we take 31 times 6, we get 186, which is too big. It's bigger than 180. So 6 is not the right number, but we know it's close. So we're going to try 31 times 5. We'll put it right here. 31 times 5 is 155. So we'll put the 5 up here. 5 times 31 is 155. And you actually don't need to finish up that, because this would just keep on going. We've gone enough places now. We can stop with all the dividing, and we can go up here and look, because now we need to round this to 2 decimal points. We are going to keep the 2003, and then we're going to look right here. We need to look at this 2. That's what we're rounding to, this decimal spot. So we look at 1 more. The next number is a 5. When we're rounding, anything 5 or above will make this number go up 1, and then the rest gets followed by zeros. So rounding this answer to the nearest, to the second to 2 decimal places would give us 2003.2, and we have to go up because this 5 is going to make this 2 go up 1. So we have 2003 and 23 hundredths, 2003.23. So that would be your answer.